Welcome to Enlightenment Unknown, Life of a Spiritual Nomad. My name is Wes Coons, and welcome back to the show. This is behind the scenes of Season 3. I can't believe it's Season 3, Episode 1, where the priest comes to the house. That day was absolutely crazy. I can promise you, I don't want to do it a second time, so I would not recommend it. As you can tell, I don't have the intro and outro worked out yet, but you know what? I'm going to get to it when I get to it. I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for listening to the show. I am starting to line up some really cool guests for you guys that's going to be on the show here. I don't know, in the next few weeks or so. Eric from the Reiki Wellness Center is going to come in. I think he's going to be a guest on the show when I do an episode. And then he's going to talk about what they do and what his legacy with him and Trinae at the Reiki Wellness Center. And, I'm really excited about that because they've been good to me, and I think you're going to enjoy what you hear. So today in the behind the scenes, I talked to a friend of mine that listened to the show, and she's like, let me give you some questions since Andrea's not here. She's still touring the world in Jamaica. So Andrea, I hope you're having fun having some cocktails. So the first question is, if they didn't fix it, what did they do when they're at the house? I don't know, and I am not disrespecting them. They did a lot. It just didn't fix the house. It was interesting watching the priest go through the home, him doing his thing. And I got to be honest, though, man, the rotten flesh smell, that was bad. That really, really messed with me. And when I was reflecting after I recorded the show for you, that I think it did that just to let me know it didn't care the priest was there. They were pissed off the priests were there, but they were just letting me know, hey, screw you, pal. You can't touch us. But you know what? Ultimately, well, I guess you're going to have to wait and see when we get to the end what happened with the house, because I'm not going to give that part away. So I don't know exactly what they did. I'm sure some things got shifted. Matter of fact, I know it did. It just didn't fix it. So the second question is, let me see if I can read this. What was I thinking when they're in the house? You know what? That was hard because Sandra Grace was there, and I love Sandra Grace. She saved my life, and they were looking at her like she was a negative when she was a positive, and they didn't understand Reiki. They felt that was devil's work, and I got to be honest, man, Reiki is not freaking devil's work. When you're standing there getting ready to work on somebody, and you ask the Holy Sacred Spirit to flow through you to be a clear, present channel, to flow through my body to heal myself or somebody in front of me, I don't know how that's devil's work. It is only the Japanese version of how the Catholic Church does hands-on healing, is my opinion, my interpretation. So it's my show, and I think that makes me right. So I like that. I like that answer. It's the only time I can actually be right and until I'm wrong. So there's that. I can appreciate them not understanding it. I can appreciate the fact that it scares them, it goes against what they've been taught. But at the end of the day, I'm allowed to pray to God the way I want to pray to God. I'm allowed to connect to Spirit the way I want to connect with Spirit. It doesn't make it wrong. It's just my way. So watching them go through the house, knowing that they're looking at her like she's a negative, I didn't enjoy that. And she was very graceful. She kind of stepped back and let them do their thing, but she would chime in when there was areas that needed extra work. And I was grateful for her for that, because she could have had an ego. She could have had an attitude. She could have argued a little bit, but she was humble. And she's like, you know what? Thank you for being here. And she answered all their questions. And afterwards, the guy that did the first exorcism with me, him and the priest were communicating, and he called me one day. He's like, who's that lady? Who's that lady? Talking about Sandra Grace. And finally, I told him, I said, hey, bro, she talks to me about God. She helps me understand the Bible. She helps me understand God. We talk about angels. And that stopped it. He stopped giving me a hard time at that point. But I'm just grateful for everybody. I'm grateful for everybody there that showed up and helped me. So if you hear that barking in the background, that is Abigail barking at the ugly dog walking down the street because she predetermined all the dogs that walk down the street are ugly and she's going to bark at them. So sorry about that. I'm not going to re-record or edit that out so she could be part of the show too. Question number 3. Why didn't you just sell the house? You know what? I was not going to walk away from that home and leave it for somebody else to have to worry about. I mean, if you bought that house with your children, how could I, with a good conscience, sell you that house knowing how bad it was? And I don't think I could have if I wanted to. I think the house would have prevented that sale. When we did ultimately sell the house, it was interesting. There was people that would come in there and they said, we love it, but we just can't live here. Just something feels off, even though it was available for sale. So the easy answer on that is I kept the home because it was my journey, and luckily I could afford to pay that mortgage, live somewhere else, and I needed to protect whoever was going to move in there. And I just kept the house. So that's what I did. Next question. Why the pool? You brought it up several times that the pool was an issue, and I don't know the 100% accurate answer, but we believe, and I think we talked about that in one of the episodes, there was a makeshift grave there, and when we moved the swimming pool, it disturbed something. I don't understand how that works. I don't understand why it would do that. However, I believe that's the true answer. And I remember jumping in that pool when everything was going on, and I would swim with my arm out of the water. If I went under the water, I was scared that maybe somehow it would put a force field or something over the top of the water, and I would drown. And God, that place was beautiful. The swimming pool was this kidney-shaped swimming pool. It was one of them hard plastic pools and had these 1,000 square foot of pavers around it, and this waterfall, and the trees all around the property. It was just beautiful. I loved that house, man. But I just couldn't stay there anymore. And so from what I understand, there was no excavation done. We didn't go in there and try to figure out what the grave was or anything like that. We just left it alone and kind of moved on. Next question. What is this one? Oh, this is a good one. So why didn't I bring Kennedy? You know what? Kennedy was with me all the time. But I was not going to subject her to what possibly could happen in that house. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen with the priest there. I sure as hell was not expecting to get hit in the chest and thrown upwards 1.5 feet, 2 feet off the ground backwards at a 45-degree angle, hitting the back of the wall like that. I mean, there's no physical way I could have jumped that way. Plus, the one guy was watching me, so it was pretty legit. And just everything in that house was a giant what the fuck, man. What is next? What's going to happen next? And I got interviewed on a show a while back. We talked about the lion's roar. And he's like, man, that's a pretty crazy story. I'm like, bro, that's like day number 1. We haven't even got into the story yet. And I remember how shocked he was when after the interview was over, we were talking about it. He's like, you're kidding me. I said, no. I said, man, that was like day 1 of a couple hundred incidences that were just crazy as can be. So I don't know. It was, she was happy to stay home in the air conditioning. She was happy to stay sleeping in the king-size bed. She wasn't happy that I left her, but at the end of the day, I was going to protect my dog. And she was already showing signs of wear and tear from the demons messing with me and messing with her. And so she got to stay home that day. This is my favorite question. Why didn't you burn it to the ground? I got to be honest, I thought about that. I'm like, a big pot of grease on the stove and just turn the heat up and watch that thing burn in the ground. But that wouldn't have fixed it. The issue wasn't the house. The issue was the land. The land had the issue. They were just manifesting in the house. They were utilizing the house. And, besides the fact it would be against the law, so I don't recommend it, it's just not going to solve the problem. At that point in time, I didn't think anything was really going to fix it, honestly. I was scared. I was at the end of my wits. I didn't know what to do next. And we still had a month or so before I got to go to the mountain to see Lakota, the medicine woman, and do that rebirthing ceremony. So it was a lot. I think that's all the questions I have. Next week, we're going to be doing 21 Days of Freedom. It's the 21 days after the rebirthing ceremony. And if you remember, that is the 21 days I had to wait to see if it worked. Thank you for listening to the show. We'll see you real soon. Find us on Instagram at VB Healer. And thanks for listening to Enlightenment Unknown, Life of a Spiritual Nomad. Have a great week.